Okay, so our ballerina looks a little bit like the Incredible Hulk, and we need to fix that. So what we're going to do is, while this layer is selected, the layer called skin, which is the one that we were drawing on, we're going to go up to image and choose adjustments, and look at this, hue and saturation. And the keyboard shortcut for this is Control U. Just remember, U rhymes with hue. Okay, so I like to do the keyboard shortcut. So Control U brings up my hue and saturation box. All right. Now, when I have this box open, if I'm on preview right here, watch, I can shift my colors back and forth, and I can actually see them happening in real life. Okay, I can make her Smurfy. I can really make her look like the Hulk. Okay, all kinds of things that I can do, all kinds of fun that I can have, but what we're going for is kind of a natural skin color. So here we go on the hue and saturation. Maybe turn the saturation down just a little bit. Hue is the color, and saturation is how much color. So we changed the color by shifting it down a little bit, and now we can choose the saturation. So I'm going to pick this, which is looking relatively realistic and natural there. Okay, so now I've got this skin layer, and you can see that I've actually overpainted some of these areas. Right, I painted on the dress here. I can simply click on the eraser tool. Ooh, look how big that is. Okay, I can adjust the size of the paintbrush by going here and shrinking down the diameter. Okay, I can also adjust the edge, and we'll talk about this more in some other tutorials, but if when you're painting you're getting like a really hard edge and you want it to kind of fade out a little bit, then you turn this hardness down to a softer level, and you can crank it up to kind of get it to sort of fade things out a little bit. We generally want things kind of fading out a little bit when we're doing this type of task. Even though we think that the color ends right there, we need to sort of trick the eyes a little bit. Now, another thing that I like to do is I like to make the brush really big. And here down at the bottom end of the dress here, the skin is a little bit showing through the dress, but I also need to see some of the dress. So what I'm going to do is just kind of go over that real quick, and you can see a little bit of the skin color appearing in there, but it also kind of fades away. All right, so that's another trick that you can do with this brush. So what I want you to do is just kind of fix this image, get everything set up so that you kind of fix this color and get all the skin properly done, and then you're simply going to click here, add a new layer, and let's call this red dress. Now, in this particular image, I was told by the person who's in the image, which happens to be my grandmother, that this dress was supposed to look like a rose, where this was like green of a flower, and these looked like the petals of a flower. Okay, so it was kind of like an upside down rose here. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a red, and now on red dress, I'm going to just start kind of painting in. Oh, and I'm having the eraser tool. Got to switch back to the paintbrush. I just start painting in on that image, and you're thinking, oh, it looks terrible. How does it look so bad? Well, we got to change the blending mode, remember? Sometimes I like to actually even just switch it over to color, and I'll just paint it in that blending mode so I can actually see it happening the way that I want to. Now, look at this. When I'm painting over this, you see that it's not turning any of this red, and that's because the light is reflecting on it, and it's not painting over the reflection, and it's supposed to work this way. When we change from color to overlay, you'll see that the color gets a little bit darker, and you start to see some, but it still is not going to cover up those shiny parts, and it's not supposed to. Okay? It's not supposed to cover the shiny parts. So don't worry, nothing's going wrong if you're doing it that way. It's just setting it up properly. So there I've done some red. Maybe I want this little part here red. I can always go back and erase these a little bit later, but I'll make a new layer, and I'll call it green dress. And of course, I'm just going to continue going layer by layer and adding the different colors to my image and getting this to look like a color photo. And this time I'm going to actually switch to overlay right at the beginning. And now when I paint in here, oh, look at that. It's looking really cool now. Starting to look like a color photo. All right, the colors are all a little bit vivid, a little strong, but I can easily change those with Control U. Right? And I can turn the saturation down just a little. Not all the way, because that would make it black and white again. I turn it down just a little bit. If I think that this green is a little bit too hot, then I can, when I'm done here, just on this level, do Control U, And I can turn the saturation down. Okay, see how it's kind of fading out a little bit? The other thing that I can do is I bring it to the customer, and the customer says, oh, all those parts that are green, those are supposed to be yellow. I say, no problem. I'll just switch it over into kind of a yellow area. Okay, maybe more saturation, maybe a little more lightness. Okay, so easily I can change the colors of the layer by choosing the hue, saturation, and lightness under hue and saturation. Okay? So go ahead and keep adding layers and go ahead and paint the image.